I was recently asked by a journalist when they were interviewing me, why is it that of all the asset classes out there, why do you actually love property as a form of investment? And it's pretty simple. It's actually leverage. The fact that I can use the cash that I've got and leverage it to buy a much larger asset, and then I can get the return on that much larger asset, which makes it, for me, the independent umpire when it comes to choosing between asset classes. Because I remember back to the very first time that property investment was introduced to me. I was watching the Ray Martin show when I was at uni. During the day, I was at home having lunch, and I wanted to watch this person being interviewed. Her name was Jan Summers, and she's been a great virtual mentor for me, and I recently got the chance to meet her. And she was up on a whiteboard talking about you can buy property, you can use the correct debt to buy that property, you can get some taxation benefits that help you cash flow the property, and over time they'll go up in value. And it kind of made a lot of sense to me. But as I've gone through my own personal journey in investing in property and helping hundreds and hundreds of clients, it's become crystal clear to me why I choose property over any other asset class, and that's because of that leverageability. So in terms of an example, let's assume we've got $100,000 and we're going to, whatever we choose, we're going to get a 10% return on it. So let's assume we get cash, 100,000 cash, we get 10% on the cash. At the end of the year, you'll make an extra $10,000 per annum. But what if I go and use that $100,000 and I buy some shares? And the bank says they will leverage that 50%. So I can use my $100,000 and get a $100,000 loan. All of a sudden I've got $200,000 to go and buy some shares, and I get the return on that. 10% is $20,000, so it's actually better than the cash. But then if you actually extrapolate that out to property, the banks will actually lend you go up to 95% in some cases, but let's be conservative, they lend us 80%. So if I've got my $100,000, I can actually borrow another $400,000, put it together with my 100, so that I can actually go and buy a property for $500,000. And 10% on $500,000 is $50,000. So using the same $100,000 pool of cash that I started with, for cash I'll get $10,000 a year, for shares I'll get $20,000 a year, and for property I'll make $50,000 per year. So on paper, it's an absolute no-brainer. The leverage is what gets you into it. But if you're going to leverage into property, you actually need to be comfortable with debt. So, and typically you have a definition of good debt versus bad debt. And I actually think that's still not definitive enough. I actually think there's three types of debt: horrible debt, tolerable debt, and productive debt. And so the horrible debt is actually going to keep you poor. It's credit card debt, it's store debt. You go out and buy the latest television, the clothes on credit card, and the moment you grab them, they're going down in value. There's no depreciation benefits, and you've got this debt to pay off from buying those assets, and that will absolutely keep you poor if you continue to buy goods using horrible debt. The next one is what I call tolerable debt, typically what you use to buy the family home. But if you think about the good debt and the bad debt definitions, the family home would come under the bad debt definition because it's not income producing and there's no depreciation benefits. But I don't think it's bad debt at all. And the reason I think it's tolerable is because you're the only one paying it off. You're the person that has to solely be responsible for the debt. But if you buy the right property, it'll go up in value and it'll feed the nest egg of your family. So therefore, I don't think it's bad debt, but I think it's tolerable debt. And then the third type of debt is that productive debt, where you buy income producing assets that go up in value, that does have those depreciation benefits. So therefore, you can leverage into these assets and grow your wealth base. And if you think about a lot of wealthy people in this country, they've got a lot of property and they've often got a lot of productive income producing debt attached to that. So if you're going to buy investment property, you've got to be comfortable with debt. But if you think about older generations, they say pay cash for everything, never get into any debt. But if you think about it in terms of those three definitions, avoid the horrible debt, make sure you're efficient on your tolerable debt, and then get as much productive debt as you can. That's going to really serve you when you build the portfolio. So think about the two kids that are in the playground. You've got one that's got a sad look on his face and the other one's running around quite happy. And so they say to the sad kid, why are you, what's making you so sad? He says, well, we're so poor, we owe the bank $10,000. And the rich kid says, well, we're so rich, we owe the bank $1 million. And it's really around changing the paradigm through which you look at debt in terms of that horrible debt, tolerable debt, and productive. So for me, whenever I'm asked what's the best asset class, because the property people are going to say property, the shares people are going to say shares, the cash people are going to say cash. But for me, the independent umpire is how much you can get as a leverage exercise so that you can safely leverage into more assets so you can get the compounding return of the much larger asset. So it's very simple. That is the very reason why I love property. Leverage.